Hello, this is Christina Byrne. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Miss Ashley Biden and her diary. There was a case where someone had taken it and was going to sell it as part of Veritas, and Veritas didn't quite want it because they couldn't quite validate it and stuff. But when I first started to hear stories about the diary or people saying stuff online about it, I'm like, this sounds a little too contrived, like a little too convenient to be real. And then they rated James O'Keefe. And I'm like, okay, this sounds more credible since they're having this kind of reaction. So anyway, they had this whole trial, and the woman who was going to sell it, got sentenced or convicted, and she was going through sentencing. So Ashley Biden decided to write a letter saying that this woman needed to be in jail. And so the letter confirms what the diary is real. And there's some disturbing things in the diary. So I don't fault her for being upset that that stuff was online and people know about her private thoughts and other things like that. But it does seem strange to make such a big deal about it, knowing the sort of things that are in there, because it doesn't make her dad look good. Just saying. So we'll be talking about that a bit. Also, the Biden administration, we talked about how they were, telling Israel they can't go into Rafah, but something that interesting that came out over the weekend is that they are trying to deal with Israel with intelligence, like, hey, we'll give you this important intelligence that you'd be interested in if you don't go in there. And I'm like, you've been withholding this important information from your ally that could help win the war and stop a lot of this destruction and chaos and Israeli soldier casualties and innocent civilian casualties. You guys kind of sounds like you're the bad guy, not the bad guy, but a bad guy for sure. For sure, if that's the case. Really shady. And I also posted a video on the weekend, or not quite the weekend. Maybe it was on Thursday or maybe it was Friday, about Biden and some stuff that we talked about throughout the week. And it went viral on TikTok. It got about 2 million views now. It's like 1.8 million. And there's a lot of comments. So I just want to talk about some of the things that people have been saying about this video of Joe Biden. So before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream to run my website, all that good stuff, so you guys can support. I appreciate if you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. If you're watching back later, you guys can do super thanks. Also, I do have different merch available at blacktnews.com that you guys can check out. So I encourage you guys to go ahead and get some cool stuff as well. That also does support. Also, I do have a new book available for pre-order. It is a fiction book. So if you like contemporary fantasy, like YA, verging on new, I guess new adult is a subsect of just young adult, but it's definitely more toward newer adult than younger adult. But it's called The Sea Witch. It's a sequel to my book The Dark Mermaid. So if you go to blacktnews.com, and on the merchandise page there's a banner that'll take you to my book website, but in the links there should be links to my book stuff on Amazon. And you guys can easily find my stuff if you search my name. So if you're interested in this stuff, I encourage you guys to check it out. Check out my stuff and leave me some good reviews. So I hope you all had a good weekend. To the mothers watching, happy belated Mother's Day. And I hope you guys had a good day. We had a good service. My brother, he's a really good preacher. And, we went out with my mom to Red Lobster, which she really likes Red Lobster. So it's so funny. Who were like, "Mom, what do you want to do?" And she's just like, "Well, I like Red Lobster. Like, what do you all want to do?" Or just like, "Where do you want to go?" And she's like, "Well, what other?" So I suggested like one other place, and she was like, "I'm like," and so I just called. I'm like, "What's your wait time?" Like, just pick where you're gonna want to go. We can go. So we had a went to church, had dinner, and so on. So good day. Hope you guys had a good Mother's Day with your families. Anyway, this another announcement this weekend. I will be at Motor City Comic Con, so we are going to have a short week. I will only be streaming Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I'm going to give myself the day off Thursday and Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. I will be at Motor City Comic Con. If I'm really tired, I might call off Monday, but it depends how juicy the news is. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not talking to these people today, and then the news is just so juicy over the weekend. So I'll be there. If you're in the Metro Detroit area and that sounds like something that interests you, it's in Novi, at the show place, suburban showcase. Been there so many times. I think it's show place. But it's a big convention center in Novi, and I will be in Artist Alley in the very first row A. So you guys can come and get some books and check out some of my stuff and get a signed copy. So it should be cool if you haven't been to one. They got some good celebrity guests as well. So hope to see you guys this weekend. So let's jump to the news. Starting off, let's talk about this Ashley Biden diary stuff. So again, I already said this, but when I first heard that Ashley Biden's diary was like on the internet and it had some pretty heinous, shady things in there, I'm like, this sounds conspiratorial. It doesn't sound, it sounds a little too contrived. Like, oh, Joe Biden sniffs kids. Joe Biden is gross. Joe Biden he's a, a, a a ped. I'm trying not to flag stuff, I guess. But the nasty things that people are when they're into kids. So to have things in that diary about his daughter pop up, it just seemed a little too tailor made for his opposition. So and I guess at the end of the day, you want to believe the best in people, even when you don't think people are good people. You still have, I think it would be best if people just aired on the side of, I don't think so, you know so anyway, it came out that James O'Keefe was like raided, and maybe mostly why they wanted to raid him is because he was still at Project Veritas at the time. They have a lot of donors, big donors. He had other stories and lawsuits and stuff going on at the time too, but I assume people wanted like some different contacts that he had as well. But I'm like, they really are going hard about this diary. I'm assuming it's true. I'm going to assume that it's true. If they're going through all this drama, why would you go through so much drama over a fake diary and draw attention? Because it was just kind of in the ethos of the internet of like, maybe, I don't want to say QAnon type conspiracy, but just there wasn't a lot of people talking about. There's still not even a lot of top people, I think, talking about it now. Maybe because it's just such a dark topic, but they drew attention to it and legitimacy to it. So then the person who was going to sell it got arrested and charged and convicted. So we're like, okay, totally a real diary. Totally real diary. But Snopes still, was rating the claims as like as unsubstantiated. Well, Snopes has now updated their rating for the diary as true, which is interesting because Snopes is a fact checking website, supposed to be. Sometimes their fact checking is so silly, and they can add so much intention to try to get the outcome that they want. But they changed it. Did Ashley Biden accuse Joe Biden of inappropriate behavior in a leaked diary? I will forever have to deal with the fact that my personal journal can be viewed online, Ashley Biden wrote to a district court judge. A diary authored by U.S. President Joe Biden's daughter, Ashley Biden, describes actions taken toward her by her father when she was a child as probably not appropriate. And now they've rated it as true. Here's a note. On April 29th, 2024, Snopes changed the rating of this fact check from unproven to true based on testimony provided by Ashley Biden in an April 8th letter to New York judge requesting jail time for one of the two people convicted of stealing her diary. Biden wrote, I will forever have to deal with the fact that my personal journal can be viewed online. So, what was the things that were appropriate? Well, we don't know exactly, besides the fact that apparently there were some showers. She was hypersexualized at a young age, and she questions if she was molested. She said, was I molested? I think so. She said she doesn't remember specifics. She says there's trauma. But she does say that at a young age, she had showers with her dad, and they were probably not appropriate. Now I've seen some people try to say, hey, showers with your daughters are fine. And parents are like, no, it's not. That's weird. That's weird. That's strange. If you're a little baby and they pooped on themselves or something, and I don't know, usually you just clean them up and you don't put them in the shower. But my dad did that to somebody. Might have been me. Just, what a dad thing to do. But what she's probably traumatized over, I would say that no, most parents don't do things like that. And there's some really big liberal accounts there were two. Well, one guy, one of the Christians or Stans on X, I don't know how to say their last name, but one of them was trying to defend the showers, and people are like, nope, that is not a thing. That's not a thing. Sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and read this letter that she sent to the court. Dear Chief Judge Swain, I am deeply saddened that I even have to write this letter because my personal private journal was stolen and sold for profit. So, we know that it's true. The point of the theft, I assume, was to be able to peddle grotesque lies by distorting my stream of consciousness thoughts. The reason I have decided to not attend tomorrow's sentencing in person is because it would only increase my pain. Nonetheless, I write to ask your honor to sentence the defendant to time in prison. I'm assuming her going to the sentencing would also draw more unnecessary attention. The defendants, which by the way, I would have just let it go and deny. I mean, I'm not pro lying, but these are House of Vipers and Snakes in that position probably be like, what lies, deception, like because O'Keefe didn't ultimately want to put it out there for Project Veritas because they didn't know totally how to verify it, or they couldn't all the way verify it. So the the fact that they drew so much attention to this and reacted the way that they did, how many people get busted and go to jail for a stolen diary? So, you know, they're the ones who shined a spotlight on it. So I would have just backed off. And as rumors kept, you just kind of deny stuff, ignore stuff, then deny stuff. If Joe Biden looked America in their eye and said that his crackhead son's laptop was Russia propaganda, it would have been, I think, pretty easy for them to try to peddle that it was an internet conspiracy theory. But whatever. The defendant's actions constitute one of the most heinous forms of bullying, not to mention a complete violation of my privacy and personal dignity. After being the victim of a crime in my early 20s, I developed PTSD. The journal was stolen, was part of my efforts to heal. I'm a private citizen targeted only because my father happened to be running to be president. In other words, my extensive work I have done to move past my trauma was undone by Ms. Harris's actions. The defendant's actions have created a constant environment of anxiety, fear, and intimidation in which my innermost thoughts are constantly disordered and manipulated. Although this criminal act happened more than 3 years ago, because of this publicity it drew, exactly as Ms. Harris intended, I am constantly re-traumatized by it. I will forever have to deal with the fact that my personal journal can be viewed online. Repeatedly, I hear others grossly misinterpret my once private writings and lob false accusations that defame my character and those of the people I love. Her actions were not only re-traumatizing to me, but constituted a horrific trauma in and of themselves. This is ongoing harm is a direct result of Ms. Harris's intentional actions. I ask your honor to sentence Ms. Harris to time in prison, followed by a lengthy probation. She should be held accountable for what she has done. Not only did she demonstrate a complete lack of morality, but she lacks any respect for the rule of law as well. Among other things, she has failed to appear in court 12 times. My goal in asking your honor to impose a term of incarceration is to ensure that another woman isn't bullied and shamed like this ever again. Yeah, I don't I think this kind of happened in a special kind of privileged case, but the despair I have often felt will never truly go away, but I ask your honor to hold Ms. Harris accountable so that she thinks twice before doing it to someone else. I have spent much of my life trying to speak up for those who cannot find their voices. I am fortunate enough to have found mine, and I use it today and every day to make sure that bullies are held accountable. Finally, I worry that a non-incarceratory sentence will send a message to her and others like her that it is okay to violate and exploit others for your own personal gain, regardless of the humiliation and pain it causes. Please send a message that these types of damaging criminal actions will not be tolerated. I thank your honor for your consideration. So I do feel bad for her though. To go through whatever kind of messed up stuff that she's gone through, and all of it to be online and to be a discussion for everyone, including us right now. It's gotta suck, man. It's really gotta suck. And I think maybe that's still, even though it's out there and it's, you know, I guess validated, perhaps why there's still not a lot of big channels really talking about it. However, it alleges some really weird stuff about the president of the United States, and you know, I don't want to say, if it was Trump, I guess people would totally look at it as fair game, I guess. And that's the kind of route that her dad's opponents and not her dad's opponents, her dad's allies and her dad has really made it out to be. There's how many times have you heard about E. Jean Carroll and her case with Trump? And this is a woman who said that rape is sexy, is supposed to be sexy, and a bunch of other stuff. I don't want to say too much more because she out here suing people, but she's an interesting woman, we'll say that. So there's just, if people are going to say we don't need to vote and elect Trump because he's some kind of, you know, inappropriate person, I think it's kind of worth mentioning that if that's what you believe, then you might want to vote third party. Because the guy sitting in office has some, you know, maybe some weird stuff going on. And if not by this diary, we could talk about, gosh, her name just is Tara Reid. And you could say, well, Tara Reid's not credible. There was more substantiating evidence for Tara Reid than there was for Christine Blasey Ford, and that was a whole debacle. And there was information allegedly that could at least validate some more of her statement, but Joe Biden didn't want to release that information because it was at his, like, I don't know, library or something, and he's like, there's tons of papers and other things that if we unsealed it, then that would be cannon fodder in a campaign. And he said that on MSNBC talking to Mika. And I've mentioned this many times, but I was just blown away at the time. I'm like, did everyone just hear him say that the reason why he can't give the American people more information is because if they heard it, then they probably wouldn't vote for him? That's what I heard. That's what I heard. So, but, you know, I understand people writing. I guess, I would say be careful about writing a diary, especially leaving it around places. That I don't understand. I don't understand how her brother be leaving laptops around and her leaving her diary, some really personal information around. Like, you would just keep that close to the chest. Always. And I'm not a diary kind of person. You know, I just but some people need to write their thoughts, man. But again, I'm sympathetic to people, her business being out there like this, these traumas being out there like this. But at the same time, you guys know my original sentiment about this, that it sounded a little too contrived to be real. Again, if they wanted to ignore this, they could have done that and just passed it off like it wasn't real. Now, I would assume they wanted the person to pay, and you know, you wanted justice. I get that, but I would have just not rated O'Keefe. And again, that seems like a really weird thing to do for a diary. If you're, you know, if you said someone took your diary, how much effort do you think the police would really be like, well, we better go get that taken care of? I just don't think it would happen. Don't think it would happen. So any time, I mean, when people mention Trump and his drama with ladies or alleged stuff with ladies, I guess you can just bring this up as like retaliation, as I mean, I suppose it's a whataboutism, but the thing about Biden and Trump is, like, so many things people complain about Trump, there's something you can complain about Biden. Trump is old. Biden is older. Trump spent a lot of money, but Biden spent a lot. Trump is mean. You don't think Biden is mean? Trump talks bad about reporters. Go talk to Peter Doocy. Biden is not nice to reporters who are not nice to him. He's not nice, man. There's just, you know, Democrats would have been far better off having another person run in 2024. They would have been far better off. But here they are. Here they are with all the flaws with Trump, with all the flaws with Trump, all these trials and all the stuff going on with Trump, it looks like Trump is going to win. It looks like Trump is going to win. And you could say, well, that's a testament to how good things were under Trump. You know, things were really good for, 2020 still happened. So that wasn't a great year. Trump didn't do everything right there, you know. Um, and then some things after 2020 wasn't thrilled about. So, you definitely had reasons that you could have moved on or whatever, but he's a nominee regardless, right? But Joe Biden, man, his whole presidency is one horrible thing after another, and he's running an awful campaign with like such a lack of moral conviction, or just just stick your wet your thumb and stick it out in the air and trying to see where the wind is blowing to see where he can best try to get votes from. He's just awful. Absolutely awful. So, who knows? Maybe they'll replace him last second. Allegedly, he might not even show up at convention. They're talking about him not going to convention, and some people think it's because they don't want him to be booed down by Hamas protesters or whatever. That could be the reason, or what people think is the reason. It could be that he's just very old. He doesn't look great. And he's not going to inspire confidence. And maybe he's just tired. So their convention might be semi online. They might not have a big kind of spectacle in Chicago like you usually would have one. But we'll see. We're getting close to it. We're getting close. We're reaching kind of the point of no return here with them. So it probably, it looks like it's going to be the rematch. And things are not looking good for Joe. Not at all in the least bit. And since we're on the subject of things not looking good for Joe, I want to talk about how angry he made people about some of his economic stuff. His economic information. So last week we talked about an interview that he had on CNN. And man, there were some interesting parts to that interview. But he mentioned how people did have money. And folks were not happy about that. So I'm going to go ahead and, I know I played this for you guys last week. I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. But I showed this clip on TikTok, and then I gave some commentary to it. And that video on TikTok has 1.8 million views right now. Still going up. And I've read many of the comments. There's thousands and thousands of comments. And most people are very angry. And you might say, well, Christina, your algorithm, your followers and stuff are probably conservative. And they largely are. That's true. But this video is basically 99% of it is coming from the For You page. And you can say, well, the algorithm's still finding conservatives. There's people with Palestine watermelons. I don't even know what the watermelons are for. Flags and all sorts of different stuff commenting. There are people who said that they voted for him who don't want to vote for him anymore who are commenting. There are people who are giving policy prescriptions to his comments that are not conservative prescriptions. I got a lot of followers after that video. They probably won't stay long if they didn't look at my other content before deciding to subscribe to me. I'm sure I'll lose them fast. I didn't really post as much this weekend, so I'm sure I'll lose them fast. But no, it's not just conservatives who are complaining about Joe here. There's a lot of folks who are very upset about what he had to say. And I think it's pretty obvious why. So anyway, here's that snippet.
What about, but there's real pain. Grocery prices are up 30%, more than 30%, since the beginning of the pandemic. And people are spending more on food and groceries than they have at any time really in the past 30 years. That's a real day-to-day pain that people feel.
It really is. And it's real. But the fact is that if you take a look at what the people have, they have the money to spend. It angers them and angers me that you have to spend more. For example, the whole idea of this notion that Senator Casey talked about, shrinkflation. I think it's on your
same
program.
Price for a smaller bottle of juice or something.
For example, Stickers Bar, they did a thing, and it's like 20% less for the same price. That's corporate greed. It's corporate greed, and we've got to deal with it. And that's what I'm working on.
What about?
So, now I cut it off a little after he said they have the money to spend, but I did explain in my rebuttal that he mentioned shrinkflation and it gave an example or whatever of that. But I'm like, people are angry because he said they have money to spend. That's why they're mad. And then he's trying to redirect to shrinkflation so they don't have to talk about inflation. And they don't have to talk about how they spent too much money and how they printed too much money. And that they were originally, when Biden was in office, and they were talking about spending a lot of money for these stimulus packages or Inflation Reduction Act and other stuff. They were warned, like, this is too much money. And if you spend this much money, it's going to cause inflation. And they were like, it's not going to be a big deal. And they kind of kept ignoring it. And Joe Biden also lied about how high inflation was when he's like, oh, it was really high when I came into office, and it wasn't. They've told a lot of lies. But his goal in bringing up shrinkflation is to misdirect people so they can say, it's not really the government's fault. It's not Biden's fault. It's just that the corporations are so greedy that's why everything is so expensive. Again, we spent too much money, printed too much money, supply chains were broken. We did things that interrupted, all sorts of things. Gas prices are high. If fuel prices are high, that makes everything higher because you have to transport product from one place to another. When people talk about corporations, yes, you can think about McDonald's. Yes, you can think about Walmart. But if you have a knitting business and it costs for the price of yarn or whatever has gone up, and you can make a decision, are you going to eat that cost yourself and make less, or are you going to raise the price so you have some more margin so maybe you can eat that night? If you raise those prices, is that corporate greed? Because you are a corporation. You may not have like 100 employees, but it is business. People hear corporation, they think evil. I'm not saying there's not evil businesses, but just because but we think too harshly about some of these businesses when they're just like normal people. Now in regards to shrinkflation, because they really started kind of trying to go this route during the State of the Union to have that be their scapegoat. Snickers did come out and say that wasn't true. And that their stuff is like the same sizes, but they are hurting just like everyone else is hurting. Think fuel costs, food, farms. Everything is expensive. Everything is more expensive. And I recall when the pandemic first started, there was an article about how if we really shut down everything, we were going to disrupt supply chain so much that it could lead to, a lot of people starving or food supplies being limited and all kinds of other repercussions or high prices and stuff. And I remember saying and thinking like, okay, maybe it's not a good idea to shut down the world. And Joe Biden didn't decide that, Trump was still in office when they started doing that kind of stuff. So, it's I'm not saying that Joe Biden is fully to blame for this stuff, and he's not fully to blame for inflation or high prices and stuff. But when we started passing some of the stimulus stuff and we were spending an ungodly amount of money after they forced businesses to close down, Joe Biden still kept it going and decided to pass more stuff himself when there was still money from the stimulus packages that weren't even spent. And then they did the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're like, oh, Republicans don't support it, so they don't really want to reduce inflation. And like, there's so many things that have nothing to do with reducing inflation in this stuff. And they didn't care. They just wanted to just throw out money everywhere. Well, there's repercussions to those sorts of things. So you can blame it on Mars Candy if you want to, but you're not absolved of your sin. You're not absolved of being the man who signs the bills. Sorry, but that's his misdirection. But anyway, that's not why people were angry. That's not even why people were angry. I just even mentioned that stuff because people were mad at me like, oh, you didn't show the rest of the clip, and it's about corporate greed. It's about incompetence. I'm not saying that corporate greed doesn't exist, but a lot of it is just incompetence of how we've done things. People are mad that Joe Biden said they have the money to spend. So his argument is that people have the money, but they're just really angry because when you have that money for that Snicker bar, but it's just smaller than it used to be. So it just really makes you angry. Or maybe people don't have the money to buy the Snicker bar at all. Maybe they would have in the past, and they're like, I can't do that right now. And that was my point. I'm like, people do people have money, or are they kind of reworking what they have to buy and deciding that they have to go without with certain things? My grocery bill has adjusted. And I know a lot of people's groceries have adjusted. And some people said they had to decide on whether they were going to buy food or whether they're going to buy medicine. And so I'm just going to read a couple of screenshots. Someone said, I work as a teacher and have to eat rice and beans once or twice a week after my bills are paid. It's wild. Someone said, I literally have 79 cents in my bank account, don't get paid for a week, and I have a third of a bag of chicken nuggets at home. Someone said, I have to decide which bill to postpone each month just to buy groceries. It's not fun. Someone said, he said it is, but it isn't. Vote nobody 2024. Someone said, right, because my wallet didn't get the memo. Someone else said, how this man got into office, I'll never know. Making the most money ever, still struggling. Nobody I know is thriving. Someone said, the other day I saw a lady put $4 of gas in her car and left crying. I feel that. $4 ain't getting you nothing, man. I mean, that's just a gallon. Someone else said, we are tapped. I'm choosing between food and medicine. Eat the rich. So conservatives don't usually go around saying eat the rich. So just FYI, these aren't just my conservative followers, because I don't have 1.4 million or I'm sorry, it's like 1.8 million have viewed this video. I don't have 1.8 million people following me. And it didn't even, like, the algorithm didn't even show it to like my following list. It's all on the For You page. Someone said people are barely making it. All that money he prints for other countries and Americans are paying the cost. Biden is a terrible president. No, sir. You sent the money to fund wars. Someone let this man retire and free us. Credit card debt is also at an all-time high. So no, we don't have the money. The banks do. Someone said Maria Antoinette of 2024. There was a couple comments like that. There are quite a few comments like that. Someone said that's the reason he will definitely not be getting my Democratic vote. Someone said he is absolutely senile. So quite a few people said that. So I didn't say the screenshot, but I mean, it's in the comments somewhere, but there's thousands of comments. Someone said we should retire him to We should send him to hospice, is what they said. Hospice is where you go when it's over. Um, Someone said we went from living pretty comfortably to struggle bus. Our bills alone went up 500 a month, then food another $500, insurance. We broke. Someone said let them eat cake. A lot of people said let them eat cake. That was the vibe people got from Joe Biden. How anyone supports or thinks he's a good president is beyond me. Idiots. LOL. Biden has been horrible. Someone else said, no, we don't have more money to spend. We're going with less things, or you're just paying the bill in that bill. Someone said that they gasped when they heard the video. Someone said the fact is he doesn't give a flying bleep about us. Someone said his blanket statement is appalling. I, as well as others, are barely struggling to live. No, sir, I don't have the money to spend. Someone said, no disrespect, but he legit looks like he has dementia or something. Now, there were a couple comments, trying to stand up for him. It said, no lies told. People rather have the best drip and put their priorities first. People complaining wearing jewelry, new Jordans, and expensive cars. Don't live beyond your means. Now, someone else was like, y'all out here buying Stanley cups and all this other stuff. And I know somebody who always gets their nails done and hair done, and they always complain about not having money. And not everybody is doing that stuff. Again, there's people who are saying that they have to decide between food and medicine. So not everybody is living and doing getting luxury things, but some people are like, we should be able to pay our bills and enjoy some nice things. Not necessarily going out and getting like a Tesla or something, but going to the nail salon maybe once every so often. Not my nails grow like this. I haven't got my nails done in a long time, but to just try to pass it off. Like, I know there's folks who always are kind of on the poverty line, and they go out and they, make sure they look fly, but maybe, they don't have anything in their savings account or anything like that. There will always be people like that, but that doesn't mean that's the experience of everybody. And more importantly, it's not just people on the poverty line who are struggling. It's people who are in the middle class who are really, really hurting. And that's ultimately was going to be what dooms Joe. So if that's your route, you want to say, no, Joe has a point. People actually have the money. If that's your strategy, good luck with that. And that's what I kept saying. Good luck with that. If Joe Biden wants to pretend, which people call the gaslighting, he's gaslighting us. If he wants to pretend that people have the money to spend, and that's the route they want to go, like, oh, wages are up. Yeah, it's not keeping on track with inflation. So it's like they're making more, but it's like they have less. It's not just because the Snicker bars are smaller. As he claims. Someone else said, I've put groceries on my credit card this past year. What money exactly? Someone else said, can barely afford groceries and rent. Joe needs to get taken to the nursing home. Must be nice, him, and being completely out of touch with reality. And someone said in all caps, $9 for grapes. Grapes are expensive. I haven't bought grapes in a minute. I'm like, grapes taste really good, but they don't taste that good. Like, I'll live. Well, someone said, well, Joe, I wish we could just pick money from trees. He has no freaking clue. And someone else said, rent and mortgages are the highest they've ever been. Used car market is beyond insane right now. Groceries, cost of living is just astronomical now, thanks to Biden. Someone said, you can't take this walking cadaver serious, bro. Trump 2024. Someone said, skipping lunches at work to save money for my family. I've lost 10 pounds over the last 9 months. And someone else said, we don't. I have $7 to last a week. And some of the quite a few people have quoted this line: "How much could a banana cost? $10." It's from a TV show. Um, Someone said everyone should send their past due bills to the White House, and he can pay them since he thinks we all have money to spend. And someone said, I have no bleep money to spend. I have credit card debt from groceries. So that's the end of my screenshots. But yeah, there's thousands of comments. And there's a couple people defending Joe. There's a couple people buying into the corporate greed sort of narrative that he wants to save him. But most people are not happy with him. And again, these are not all conservatives saying this stuff. There's plenty of Democrats, a lot of progressive Democrats, moderate Dems and stuff, who think he's wildly out of touch. And if he thinks that he's going to lose the election because of Gaza and Israel, which doesn't make any sense, because you would just, if I was him, why wouldn't you just want Israel to end it quickly and people kind of maybe get over it to some degree by the time the election happens? I don't know why you would slow walk all this stuff and interfere, kind of do things that help and incentivize Hamas, like the White House is doing. I don't understand him at all. But people, and a lot of people don't even care about this stuff. They're like, that's going on in another country. I can't feed my kids. That's what's going to be what's on people's minds when they go to vote. And you can say, well, Trump's not going to do anything better. Some people said in the comments, oh, things aren't going to be better under Trump. And people are like, well, I guess I'm kind of old enough to remember that things were better under Trump. They kind of were. The economy was kind of fire. It was kind of slapping. Prior to COVID, things were pretty awesome. So I was talking to my youngest sister about this. I'm like, how can people not remember just something that happened a couple years ago? And she's like, because they were probably 10. She's like, they were probably 10 years old and probably didn't know. And maybe that's fair, because if these kids were in high school or they were in being in college and stuff, maybe they weren't really working, and their incoming economy was dependent on other people, so they didn't have that kind of perspective. So fair enough if that's the case. I think some of these people are adults making that claim, but yeah, a lot of people trust the person who's run businesses or whatever over the guy who's enriched himself while being a public servant for forever. And they remember that things were better. So but the point is, their things are not good now, and he's gaslighting people. So that makes people upset. If you could at least be honest with people and say, but we have a solution and things are going to get better. But Joe Biden is making the case that things they're already better. And you guys have money. It's just corporate greed. Because Snicker bars are smaller. That's cat, bro. So good luck with this strategy. This time last year, I was not confident at all that Trump would pull out a win. I think but Joe Biden is so bad. It's not that he wasn't bad last year, but it's remarkable. It's astonishing. It's mind-blowing how bad it all is. Just incompetence on every single level. It's like he's not even fighting to win. His only strategy is that Trump is a racist, sexist, etc., blah, 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 threat of democracy, and so on. But as I already said, I could just flip the table and give you examples about Joe Biden being racist and a bunch of things that you might say about old man Trump. I can definitely say about old man Biden. So you have to deliver on other sorts of ways. And he ain't cutting it. Especially on the foreign policy front. Disturbing things have come out. So we know that Joe Biden is cutting off weapons to Israel if they go into Rafah, and apparently has been warning about it for months. And there was even a call with the White House that they like kind of cut out like the readout of it because they're concerned about blowback or whatever. But he didn't want Israel to go into Rafah. That's not new news. But cutting off aid, very interesting, especially because again they already appropriated those funds. I was kind of informed that was an impeachable offense to the Democrats or whatever, but it's not good. It's not a good way to legislate, to make deals across the aisle, get something done in a bipartisan fashion, and then once you have signed it, to be like, you know what, we're just gonna withhold this thing I don't like. That really destroys the faith in the process, future negotiations, your trust as a leader, any sort of normalcy that Joe Biden pitched to the American people. Because Trump was out of his mind. Trump was a crazy guy. Trump just couldn't be reasoned with. Trump this, so the adults are supposed to come back. And here comes Biden doing another thing that is just shady. Just shady. So anyway, they're still trying to deal with Israel about not going into Rafah. So one of the things that they, a carrot they wanted to dangle in front of Israel's face is that, hey, if you don't, we will give you some interesting intel about the Hamas leaders, where they are, and, some stuff about the tunnels. And my response to that is, y'all know this information? You knew this information the whole time? You knew this information the whole time? Now, they could be lying, which is really shady. Super, super shady. Almost as shady as having the information the whole time and withholding it. Because the reality of the situation is that Hamas committed October 7th, and they will do it again if they can. And if Israel loses this war, they're going to look really bad. It's already bad that their international standing, which UN always treats them not well anyway, but their big ally in the US having strained relations and not having their back is definitely not good for Israel. And it makes them look weak to their enemies who want to destroy them, Iran and all their terror proxies. It's very dangerous. To be honest, they can't afford to fail. To be honest, it would be very bad if they did lose and didn't take home a W. And they want their hostages back, which there's 5 who are American, FYI. They want their hostages back, and they want to take out Hamas. If you know a way to get to their leaders, why wouldn't you tell them so they could end the war? If you knew important information about the terror tunnels, why wouldn't you tell them so they could end the war? Because if they pack up and go home, there would just be another October 7th. If you call for a ceasefire, you just want everything to stop. What you are essentially calling for, the reality of what you're essentially calling for is for the future dead Jews. Okay? That's just a fact. And you can say, well, if they continue on, there will be casualties. That's war. Unfortunately, that is a reality of war. But they do evacuate people. They send the text and the calls and take steps to minimize casualty death way more than other countries, especially the United States of America. They have handled this urban warfare far more conscious of civilians than the U.S. has done historically. Which, by the way, the UN cut the casualty numbers in half. So if you were out there and you believe that there was 30,000 plus civilians who died in Gaza, you were kind of maybe an idiot. But, don't trust the terrorists when they feed you propaganda, but the UN acknowledged that they did basically cut those numbers in half. And you could say one is too many, but they are facing an existential threat. The best way to minimize casualties or to end the war is for Hamas to be defeated. That's the best way. So if the US has intelligence that could lead to that defeat, why would you not share it? Why are you using it as leverage to stop them from going into the remaining stronghold here? It's very interesting, is it not? It is very darn interesting. I think the Washington Post was the one who reported it at first, but I don't know if they reported it first, but they did report it, and other people had picked it up. But it's interesting. Biden at this point is helping Hamas. And it's even part of their strategy to strain Israel's relations on the international scale. And having the US not have Israel's back is huge for them. It emboldens them to not have to make a deal, to not obviously have to surrender. And why would they surrender? You know, they don't mind their people being martyrs, and you know, that's their mentality. But this is it's really disappointing. Like, I try not to be surprised. But everyone was just kind of like, excuse me? You know, sometimes I hear things, and you know, mostly I'm like, I'm glad I'm with the Lord. Like, I believe in the Lord, because if things would be really dark if I didn't, I think. But sometimes things in politics happen, and I'm like kind of grieved at how bad the situation is, or how bad our leaders are, or how dumb they are. And that's happened a few times in the Biden administration, where I'm like, oh my gosh. We are clowns to the highest degree are in charge. And I think the first time I felt that way was Jen Psaki was still the press secretary, and they were talking about the immigration crisis. This probably wasn't the first time I felt this way, but this is a specific example that I can give you. They were talking about the immigration crisis and how they were trying to stop people from coming, you know, incentivize people to not come. So they started, you know, doing ads overseas, and they decided they're going to make cartoons to try to convince people not to go. And they're like, well, do you have any sort of way to track you to you know, to see how this is working? And Jen Psaki is just kind of like, well, you can never kind of prove, you know, who doesn't come, like why they wouldn't come or whatever. And so, so I'm like, okay, so you're spending money for these dumb efforts instead of just, you know, doing remain in Mexico, deporting people in mass or whatever. Taking steps that could actually do something about the border. You decide that you're going to just try to convince people not to come by making cartoons, and you have no kind of way to grade yourself to see if anything that you guys are doing is actually effective. And you're flat out admitting that we have no way of proving that it was worth our taxpayer dollars. And I was just so puzzled, because they asked her the question about, like, what is the administration doing? And she's like, okay, she was so excited. She was so excited to tell to the American people about their dumb cartoons. And this dread just came over me. I'm like, these people think that this is like a good idea. And they have no way to even be accountable for their idea. And it was so silly to hear someone who represented the most powerful person in the world, allegedly, be so foolish? And Biden in this Israel thing, which I've been thinking about it a lot, but talking this out with you guys, like I feel it's like a treads back on when I say that I'm disappointed. It is disappointing. This is some villainy, man. Think about all the people who are dying. The Israeli soldiers who are risking themselves being on the ground rather than just like making Gaza a parking lot. And then the women and the children who are being killed as collateral damage. If you genuinely had information that could help Israel have a more swift victory, why wouldn't you just give it to them? But you use it to try to get them to take the L? So, I don't know, guys. This man just can't be president again. It's bad enough that it's only May, and he's still going to be president for regardless, unless he passes away or they impeach him. What like that's going to be any better because of who's going to come up next? He's still going to be president for the rest of the year. He just it'd be awful if he won again. Just absolutely awful. That's why Bill Barr, he had that interview on CNN, and Caitlin Collins was just like, but Trump said mean things about you. And he's like, so? This is about the country. Well, Trump is an authoritative figure, and the left is what's dangerous right now. Biden, the left, the ideology they're promoting. That's the real danger. Like, oh, but Trump, he's sending a threat to democracy January 6th. Did he succeed? No, but Biden, they're doing some real damage, successfully doing some real damage. Not only to the United States of America, but it's rippling out. And there's a trickle down of dread. They like using that term, trickle down, which, by the way, trickle. It's actually called supply side economics. So if people are talking about trickle down, that is a slur of an actual economic thing. It's a supply side economics. But they like using the term trickle down. They are trickling down dread from the US, and it's just spreading out all over the world to our allies, alleged allies, and so on. It is not good for America to look frail and weak and incompetent, and to look like we do not honor and respect and won't stand with our allies. I can't believe that the Biden administration thought it was a good idea to put out the fact that they have intel, and they're just important intel, and they're just not sharing it. Like, you might as well just wear a sign that says, hello, we are evil. I was going to use some other language, but that's what I landed on. By the way, since I mentioned Jen Psaki, I just want to point out that Jen Psaki, in her book that's coming out, she decided to rewrite history with Joe Biden looking at his watch. And she apparently said that didn't happen. Talking about with the soldiers who died in Afghanistan. Remember when Joe Biden looked at his watch, and there was the Gold Star families who were upset because he was looking at his watch. We all saw the video of him looking at his watch. Jen Psaki acted like that didn't happen. She acted like that didn't happen, but she says it'll be corrected. But they always lie. They've been lying for a long time. But why lie about something like that that's on video in your book? Why be that disrespectful? It was already disrespectful the first time when he kept checking his watch. And it's disrespectful that there's really no accountability for the debacle that was the exit. But to go and rewrite history in your book, it's pretty disgusting. Pretty darn disgusting. Well, anyway, that's all I have for you today. There's more I could go on, but those are my main topics, and other things I want to discuss. Maybe we'll hit on tomorrow. I did watch a Trent Horn Pearl Davis video. They had a debate on Pine of Aquinas about marriage, and I'll say this and save a bit for tomorrow. I'm not gonna talk about it long tomorrow, but man, he smoked her. He smoked her so bad, and she's not even wise enough to appreciate how badly she was smoked. But anyway, that was interesting. I listened to that today. So anyway, please go to blacktunies.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktunies.com, because it does cost us to stream and run my website stuff. Check out different merch on my website, like different t-shirts and mugs and so on. Please check out some of my books that I've written. I have 18 now altogether. Well, one is a pre-order still right now, but you guys can search my name on Amazon. But if you go to blacktunies.com, there's a banner that'll take you to my book website. There's also links in the description that'll take you to my Amazon page. It has my books. I guess I'll have to add my new one on there, but I have historical fiction fantasy books. I have children's chapter books and other stuff as well. So go ahead and check out my stuff. Again, we will only be streaming 3 days out this week, so just 2 more episodes go this week, because I will be at Motor City Comic Con this weekend. So we'll make it count. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.